To God be the glory in the highest. I greet every one of you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Our subject of discussion today is refuting or correcting one of the supposed contradiction non-Christians have against the Bible. What we are going to consider today is, did Jesus bear his own cross? Did Jesus bear his own cross? A, yes. John chapter 19 verses 17. B, no. Matthew chapter 27 verses 31 to 32. I'm happy to tell you today that there's no contradiction between John chapter 19 verses 17 and Matthew chapter 27 verses 31 to 32. All are the same. Let's read from the book of Matthew chapter 27 verses 31. And after they had mocked Jesus, they took off his robe off from him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to be crucified. And verse 32 now, and after they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name, and they compelled him to bear his cross. What Matthew chapter 27 from verse 31 to 32 simply means was that Christ was led out. The phrase led him away to crucify even make it known to us that Christ bear his own cross, because he's somebody that bears a particular thing, bears a body or bears a particular thing that you can lead out. You lead such an individual out gently. Also, Mark chapter 15 verses 20, I read in Mark chapter 15 verses 20, and when they had mocked him, they took up the purple from him and put his own clothes, and they led him out to be crucified. You consider the word, and they led him out to crucify him. If somebody is not bearing anything, not carrying anything, they can't lead that person out just like that. But this shows us that Christ carried his own cross. And beside, in verse 21 of Mark chapter 15, and they compelled one Simon a Cyrenian who passed by coming out of the country. They now compare, where did they meet Simon of Cyrene? Simon of Cyrene was met when he was coming out of a country. The question is that before they met Simon of Cyrene, who was bearing the cross of Christ? Is it the soldiers that were bearing the cross of Christ? Never, they cannot do that. Roman soldiers can never do that. It was Christ himself that was bearing his own cross before they met Simon of Cyrene. And also in the book of Luke chapter 23 verses 26, it was said that the cross was laid on Simon after they met him coming out of a country. This shows us that before Simon of Cyrene was met, according to Mark chapter 15 verse 21, it was Christ that was bearing his own cross, because they met Simon of Cyrene when he was coming out of a country. Because if Simon of Cyrene has joined them when Christ wanted to come out, now you can see that it was the one that bear the cross throughout. But it was the time they met him coming out of a country that he was compelled to carry the cross of Christ. What John chapter 19 verse 17 means, let me read it. John chapter 19 verse 17, and he bearing his cross went forth into a place called the place of Golgotha. Let me start from verse 16. John chapter 19 verse 16. They deliver him therefore unto them to be crucified, and they took Jesus and led him away. Can you see led him away? They led him away. It means that he was the one bearing that cross. And he bearing his cross went forth into a place called the place of Golgotha. What John chapter 19 verse 17 mean was that Christ bear his own cross to a particular place before Simon of Cyrene collected it. That doesn't mean that it was the one that bear it out. The focus of John writer was to what? Was to tell us, was to account only about how Christ bear his own cross. That doesn't mean that it was only Christ that bear his own cross to Golgotha. He just want to tell us about Christ, that Christ bear his own cross. That is why he did not use Simon of Cyrene. His own focus about carrying the cross was Christ. But other gospel writer make it known to us that it was not Christ only that carried his own cross. Their own focus was both Simon and Christ as the carrier of the cross of Christ. But the focus of John just want to summarily tell us that Christ carried his cross, but that doesn't mean that Christ was the one that carried his cross till the end. God bless you. Jesus only can.